I'm here right now with the incredibly talented Olympian, Missy Franklin. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you?
Of course, I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. We have some mutual friends, and you just moved to Tennessee recently, back to your husband's home state. So kind of a chance meeting, and I'm so glad it happened.
I know, I am too. And we're so happy to be in Nashville. We've been loving it so far. And it was amazing because this is where we kind of dated. Like whenever I would visit him when we were dating, his whole family's here, which is why we moved back. So Nashville's honestly felt like home for a while because it's where his family's been. That feels like my family, and that is my family now. And so now to be here full time, it's amazing.
Yes, I love that so much. Now tell me a little bit about your story, just for anyone who maybe hasn't heard some of it. What got you started in swimming?
Absolutely. Well, I expect many people have not heard it. But long story long, I started swimming from, as early an age as you can imagine. My mom never learned how to swim. And so this fear of the water, it's actually proven to be generationally based. So if the parents don't know how to swim, there's only an 18% chance that the children in that household are going to know how to swim as well.
Wow.
So it's really something that's passed down. And I was very grateful for my mom, who was willing to face her own fears to not pass them down to me. So we got in a mommy and me YMCA class when I was 6 months old. And I was that baby that was being dunked under and coming back up, just cackling, like just loving every second of it. And pretty much since then, you have not been able to get me out of the water. I was snorkeling by the time I was 2. The earliest you can really start summer club is when you're 5. I petitioned to do it when I was 4, but they wouldn't let me. And then it just kind of took off from there. I did every sport growing up as well, but swimming was just my passion. You know, it was the thing that I really felt called to. And it turns out I had a bit of a knack for it, which happened very early, which is a little different, but I started doing pretty well and finding some success. And I qualified for my first Olympic trials when I was 12, and I competed there the first time when I was 13, and that was the Olympic trials for Beijing in 2008. And I was the second youngest person there, and it was just such a surreal experience. I was on the same pool deck and swimming in the same pools as Michael Phelps and Natalie Coughlin and people whose posters I literally had on my wall back home in my bedroom. And now I'm next to them. It was just, it's so surreal. And so I kind of left that experience going, I made it here and I've seen it now in person. And this is something that I want more than anything. And so I trained as hard as I possibly could for the next 4 years. And I came back for the 2012 Olympic trials and qualified for my first Olympic Games in 7 events and went to compete in the London Olympics. And I won 4 gold medals there and a bronze. And then 4 years later, qualified for the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio and won another gold medal there. And then I recently retired in 2018 due to an injury, and have just been living a beautiful life ever since. That honestly makes my swimming career feel like, literally another lifetime ago.
Oh my gosh, so cool to hear from the beginning about your mom and how that all started to see where you are now. I know that has to be really cool for you too. Did you always see Olympics in your future? Was that always the dream, or did that not come true until a little bit later on in your life?
It honestly was always the dream. We have pictures that I drew when I was 5 of me standing on top of an Olympic podium with a gold medal. And I think there's just something really special about the Olympics. For some sports, it's the peak. That's it. And so growing up and being a swimmer and having swimming really be an Olympic sport, that to me was the end all be all, this is one of the most incredible things. And to be named the best athlete in the world just while representing your own country, just seemed to me like such an unbelievable thing to strive for, and almost to a degree impossible, right? But I think it was because of that it made it so much more fun. When you set goals that scare you, it makes working towards them and getting closer to them such a fulfilling journey. And that was such a big lesson that I learned, the entire process, but now especially being able to look back on it was, yes, standing up on those podiums and getting those medals were absolutely unbelievable moments in my life. But when I look back on my swimming career, those aren't necessarily the first moments I think of. It's actually some of the smallest, maybe seemingly insignificant moments of dancing with all my teammates after Saturday morning practice and Friday night carbo loading dinners before the swim meets, like those small moments. And you really do realize that it's great to have a destination, to have a goal, but at the end of the day, it really is about the journey getting there.
Yeah, and that journey has to be tough too. I know you look at it and you can see all the successes you've had, and there's been, gosh, you have so many titles, and being this one of the best athletes in the world, you have so much success in this sport. But there had to be hardships on the way.
Of course.
What were some of those moments where you were like, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? Can I do this? What did that all look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say those hardships really came for me in between the 2012 and 2016 Olympic Games. I think leading up to 2012 in London, I was so naive, and that really worked to my advantage. Like, I was so young. I was 16, 17 years old, and I didn't really have a care in the world, right? Like, I was just swimming. Like, it was so fun, and I was doing well. And so I trained harder and I swam faster. And like, it was all just this very seemingly simple. Of course, it was a ton of hard work, but it kind of made sense, you know? Like, I worked harder and harder and harder every single day, and I got faster, and I kept achieving my goals, and I had a blast while doing it. And no one knew who I was. I was the young one. I was the rookie on the scene. So my first Olympics was just so like, no pressure. Like, let's just go out, have a great time. Like, we're here for the experience. And that's how I performed. You know, you could kind of see that. Like, I was just so full of joy, and I wasn't swimming out of fear. I was just swimming because I was just happy to be there, you know?
You just love the sport.
Exactly. And then things really changed over the next 4 years. I decided to remain amateur. So after London, I didn't accept any money, sponsorships, anything like that, because I really wanted to go to college and swim for my college team, because that was another dream of mine that I really wanted to see come true. So I went through that process and had 2 years at Cal Berkeley. And then I came home to train for the 2016 games. And that's when things kind of shifted for me. I think that year was probably the hardest of my life, because I went from an amazing team environment and having been a part of a team and having a lot of balance in my life with school and friends and swimming, to kind of really, for the first time ever, just honing in on training alone. And I think I really made that decision because I was scared. I really wanted 2016 to be better than 2012, and I had set the bar quite high in 2012, and it wasn't just me that wanted that, but I started to feel those outside expectations and that outside pressure, which I had never really let get to me before. But I think once you compete and achieve at that level, it does get really hard to tune that out. And so for the first time in my life, I really stopped swimming because I loved it, and I started swimming because I felt like I had to achieve these things that were expected of me. And it became much more fear-based, out of not wanting to disappoint other people, as opposed to just going out there and doing my best. So there was a lot that I struggled with during that time. Just a few months out from Olympic trials, I got diagnosed with depression, insomnia, anxiety, and eating disorder, like just a whole gamut of things that just came from essentially lack of balance, just training day in and day out. And for the first time in my life, feeling like my self-worth was completely wrapped up in my sport. And if I didn't achieve in my sport, then I had nothing else to really offer as a human being. And so Olympic trials in 2016 was really, really tough. The first event that I had there was the 100 backstroke, and I was the reigning Olympic champion in that event. And you have to finish top 2 in order to make the team. And that night, my first final, I got 7th. So really, I mean, in swimming, it's always close, but in my mind, you know, not even close to making the team. And I remember going back to my hotel room that night and just sobbing for like several hours, and really thinking, I'm not going to make this team. Like, not only am I not going to have a second Olympics better than my first, I'm not even going to have a second Olympics. Like, this is just not going to happen. And I kind of just went pretty much as far within myself as I could and said, you know, you've got 2 options here. You can give up, and you can just say, you know, this is it, or you fight with everything that you have left within you. And it may not be much, but if you look back at this and know that you didn't do everything you possibly could have, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, no matter how hard it is. And so somehow I found that within me. And over the course of the next several days, I qualified in 3 events for my second Olympics. And those games themselves for me were still a massive disappointment, but the fact that I was able to make an Olympic team in that state and still walk away from a gold medal, that medal definitely holds different meaning than the ones from my London Games.
Yeah. Wow. And just hearing about that, when you were in that really kind of hard, dark place in a moment that was very intense for you, what got you out of that? You mentioned a little bit of like, okay, I saw a turning point, but there had to be something that got you through that moment in time.
Yeah.
Was it family? Like what did that kind of look like?
Well, my family was amazing. First of all, my mom and dad are my best friends. And so living with them, I don't mean to make that sound like it wasn't a great situation. It was wonderful, but I think it is hard when all of your friends are at college, right? And you are at home. And so I don't really have any friends around where I am. I don't have any of that balance. So I did have my mom and dad. And unfortunately, I wish I could say that this isn't what happened, but this really is. I just kind of hit rock bottom. Like I just hit a place where I was like, I can't go any lower than this. And it got scary to a point where I was like, I have to ask for help. And that's why I want to talk about it. And why I do talk about it so much is I don't want people waiting to that point before they realize that they need to ask for help. And it was in that moment. And when I did ask for help from my parents, I remember sitting down with both of my coaches and just saying, something's not right. Like there's something going on, and something's been going on for a really long time. And it was literally in that moment of verbalizing it and speaking it out loud, I had never felt more courageous in my life. And I think not only as an elite athlete, but as human beings, at some point, somewhere, for whatever reason, we're told that asking for help is a sign of weakness. And I don't know where it comes from. I'm doing everything in my power to try to unravel this, because that was that moment for me where I've never felt more brave. I've never felt more strength, and being able to go to the people that I trust and love and saying, I need help. Something is wrong. And I thought that I could do this on my own, but I'm now realizing that it's not about doing it on your own. You're not weak because you can't get through something on your own. You're so strong because you have the power and the trust in yourself to know when you do need help and reach out for that. And so that was kind of my moment of, okay, this is real. I need that help. And then once I did, of course, it all started getting better from there. Not to say it still wasn't a struggle for much longer. Asking for help is really just, the first step, but it is such a massive first step that you're kind of from that point on able to really recruit the people around you that need to be there, that understand what you're going through, that are going to help you take those steps forward.
That's such a powerful message, especially coming from you for many reasons, not only because you are an extremely gifted and talented human and athlete, but also just because I think it's important to share the side of the story that isn't so glamorous, especially when it does look very glamorous. You're an athlete, you've been on TV and you have all these titles and all these medals, and people think, well, that's what they wanted. That's what they spent their whole life doing. But hearing you talk about that's incredibly moving, just to know that I know for me personally and a lot of people that you're going through those same things. And I know we would like to say that celebrities and athletes are not like us and it doesn't look the same, but we all are. We're all going through similar issues in one way or another. Absolutely. May not look the same way and the journey may not look the same, but there's definitely similar issues going on there.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that comes out of talking about it is, just like you said, it may not be the same experience, but the feelings are often very, very similar. And I remember for a long time after Rio, just as I was kind of struggling to understand why this had happened, I came to the understanding that my faith is very important to me. And so I kind of came to the understanding that sometimes I don't think we're meant to know the why of things that we go through in life. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we find out the why, whether it's days, months, years later, we look back and we're like, okay, I see what you did. Like, I understand why I went through that. I get it. But I think there are scenarios where we're just not meant to know, that we just have to trust that we did go through them for a reason. And when I look back on that, I think for me, that reason is we go through the things we go through to then help other people get through similar situations. And to me, it's like, if that was what came out of that experience, as hard and honestly horrible as it was worth it. And I'd do it 100 times over, because now I'm able to speak about mental health. I'm able to bring awareness to the topic. I'm able to talk to young athletes. And I remember beforehand when I was young and I would have younger athletes come up to me and ask me, what do you do when you're feeling really down, when you just don't want to go to practice, when you're having a plateau? And I'd never experienced that. So I never knew what to say, right? And so I felt so bad that I couldn't help them. And now, again, as hard as it was having gone through it, I'm able to talk to them from a place of having been there, which is always a really special moment and conversation.
And speaking of young athletes and just people going after their dreams, much like you did from the beginning, if you could give them some advice as they kind of journey, maybe it's a dream that seems impossible, like going to the Olympics, or maybe it's something very simple, but what would you tell them given all of your experience now?
Honestly, I would say, as much as you can, just stay true to you and your why. I think in the world that we live in, it's very interesting. Yeah, and I don't think this applies just to athletes either, but it's almost like being a superb athlete isn't enough. You also have to have the personality. You have to have the looks. You have to have the social accounts. You have to be funny. You have to be personable. Like, you have to come off like, so it's so much pressure. It's almost not enough to just be you. And I think a lot of us feel like that some days, that sometimes it feels like we're not enough. And I would just tell them to trust and believe in your absolute heart of hearts that you are exactly as you are enough, you are worthy, you are not just what your sport or your job or your hobby deems of you. Like, you are so multifaceted and you have so many different aspects of you that are wonderful and that make up who you are. So stay true to all of those things and remember why you are doing this, not why other people want you to do it or what they're expecting to come out of it, but what are your goals for yourself? Why are you doing this? And just stay as true to that path as you can.
I love that you said that. Reminds me of a conversation I had with a friend when he was kind of trying to figure out all these different paths that he could go on. And I was like, what is your middle core? What is the one word that you could use to describe everything you want to do in your life? If you could stay true to that one thing. And I think that's similar to what you're speaking about now. And it helped him, at least guide him in the direction of what he wanted to find and how he could stay true to exactly what he was trying to do.
I love that.
Yes. But I think that's what you're saying. And I think that's so important for a lot of people to hear. And to your point, not just athletes. We all need to hear that.
All of us.
If you had to change anything that happened in your career, is there anything, or, is it like you said, everything had to happen the way it happened?
Just like that. I think everything happens for a reason. And I believe in that so strongly. So again, as hard as some of those moments were, I wouldn't change a thing. It was really hard retiring on terms that weren't my own as well. Like, that was kind of another transition that I had to go to as well. Like, I wanted to go to 3 Olympics. I wanted to go to 4 Olympics. And when I had to retire at 23 years old, like, it killed me. I mean, that was so hard. And I had pushed for almost 2 years trying to get past an injury and had done everything imaginable. And the amount of hours I had spent in physical therapy and with ice on my shoulders and just, I mean, it was exhausting. And I think it was, again, hard because we often glorify like the comeback story, there was disappointment and then you have the like rocky moment of the training and the intensity and then you come out on top and it's like, and I wanted that so desperately. And I was the story of, there's disappointment, there's injury, you do everything you can to come back and you just can't, your body just, no matter what you do, it's just not there for you. And so that was hard. But again, I know that in my journey, my path, my life, that was exactly what was meant to happen. And I look at my life now and where I'm sitting and the things that have happened since I retired. And it's like, I can't imagine doing anything different because it means that my life would be different and I wouldn't change a thing about my life right now.
And what does your life look like, post-retirement, post all of these Olympic medals and all these titles that you have? What does it look like now?
Well, I was very fortunate in that kind of rough time of injury and working through it and going through retirement also lined up with me meeting my soulmate. So that made a significant difference. But that was around the time where I started dating my now husband. And we got engaged the year after I retired, and then got married. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And we have the best present of all, which is a 13-month-old baby girl. And her name's Sarah Caitlin. And so now being a mom has been a whole other transition. And that has truly been my dream job for forever is being a mom. And she has made that dream come true in just so many more ways than one. And I still get to work, which is really fun. I still do a lot of public speaking. I talk a lot about mental health. I do a lot of motivational, inspirational talks, things like that, and still work with different companies. So that's really fun as well, because I kind of got the best of both worlds of being a mom and getting to spend a ton of time with my girl, but also still getting to travel a bit and use the platform that swimming gave me to still inspire, which is very, very important to me.
Yes, and you're totally doing that. I mean, you're inspiring me right now while we're sitting here talking. I need to go swim some laps now or something. I don't know. Are you going to teach your daughter how to swim? Are you going to try to?
Of course. She's been in swim lessons since 6 months old. So same as us. She's a total water bug. Absolutely loves it. But nothing too formal right now. We have her at Safe Splash, which is an awesome learn to swim school. But during summertime, we were honestly just trying to get her a lot of exposure in the pool. I think for younger ones, that's really the most important thing. You don't have to do anything. I don't want you to feel the pressure of doing those formal swim lessons right away, but just that exposure to getting them in the water and around it really helps take some of that fear component away. So when it comes time for formal swim lessons, which again, I also believe there's no time too early. So whenever you're ready, I think it's a great time, but they're kind of used to it, right? It's not this really big, scary thing that they've never seen before. So we spent a lot of time in the pool with her this summer. And now that pools are closed, we'll start getting her back into weekly swim lessons. So she's still getting that exposure all year long.
Oh, that's so much fun. Yeah. You're definitely having a great period of your life now, just a new season of life. And it's really cool to see the transition for you and showing too that sometimes the redirection can be a really cool and good thing.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree with that more. And again, just trusting the process. It's really hard when you don't really know where that redirection is going and you've never known another direction. But I think trusting yourself is something that we could all do a little bit more, and trusting our strength and our integrity and just our sense of self, and knowing that no matter what happens in this life, we're going to handle it. And, that's something that I'm still working on. That's something that I think a lot of us are still working on, but it's really empowering when you kind of feel that trust coming into play of, whatever happens, whatever transitions I go through, whatever paths I might have to go down that I'm not expecting to, I know that I have what it takes to walk it in a way that I'm going to be proud of.
Absolutely. And that's the best way we could totally end this, because if you give any more advice, I'm going to go run through a wall and have all these things I need to go do. You're inspiring me, which is exactly what you want to be doing. And I love that for you. I love to see that your life has gotten to be where you want it to be too. So
it means a lot.
Just very exciting stuff. And thank you for coming on and hanging out with me for a little bit.
Of course. I love being here. I will do it anytime.